A survivor, I ain't gon' give up. I'm a survivor, keep on surviving.
Who are you sending that to?
Hey guys, so I've been waiting for the right time to share my seizure and trauma story, but I realised there's not really a right time. But as of today, it's 2 years since my first seizure, and I just want to share my story about what happens in my seizures, how I've dealt with it, and like the difficulties that have come with it. Okay, so my first seizure was on the 7th of September 2018, and I was in a club with my friend and I suddenly felt like really panicky, kind of like having an anxiety attack. So I said to her, okay, we need to get out of the main bit and can we go to the side part which is a bit more quiet. So that's where she took me, and I was kind of talking gibberish. It wasn't really like, my words weren't coming out right. She takes me out of the club because at this point I was just really not feeling okay, and we sit outside of this shoe store. So we sat out there and all of a sudden that's when I start seizing, and I'm on the floor, so my whole body's jerking, like convulsing, and she is obviously panicking because we've been drinking. She doesn't really know what to do anyways, and it's kind of scary. So she walks up to, so basically we're here and the club's more up here, so she wants to go get a bouncer but she doesn't want to leave me by myself. So she's kind of panicking. She called for the ambulance, and because we've been drinking, the ambulance like didn't believe us. So they were just like, we're not going to send anyone out because they just thought we were lying. So then she calls my mum. My mum's an epilepsy specialist nurse, so she knew like what to do. She makes sure that Poppy, my friend, goes and gets the bouncer. So she runs up and gets the bouncer, and the bouncer comes back and is looking after me whilst I'm seizing. When they call the ambulance, then the ambulance comes. By the time the ambulance comes, I'm still seizing, and they bring me into the ambulance and they're just screaming at me. So when I was seizing, I was kind of going in and out of consciousness, so I could kind of hear like sometimes what people were saying, sometimes not. Anyways, they were just screaming at me. They were like, wake up, and all of this. So I finally come out of it, but I've been seizing for 45 minutes, and obviously, one, it's my first seizure, so they want to know what's up, and two, 45 minutes is a really, really, really long time. I just wake up and start crying because I don't know where I am, I don't know what's happened, and like my body's aching so much. Anyways, they finally let my mum in, and I go to the hospital, and then obviously they're putting fluids in me because I've been drinking. I think they just observed me overnight. They didn't really run many tests that I know of. I think they'd done a couple of bloods. Oh yeah, and I had to talk to like a psychiatrist in the morning before I was able to let out. So they let me out like midday the next day, and then I went home. So obviously after your first seizure you need to get checked up. So they want to see if you have epilepsy and all of that stuff. So from then on I got given a load of appointments. So I had an appointment in October for an MRI, and I had appointments for ECGs and EEGs and that sort of stuff. Anyways, going back, I just want to explain like what happens to me when I do seize. When I seize, my whole body convulses. So this is majority of the time, because sometimes I seize a bit differently. I'll say the both of them. But majority of the time, my legs start convulsing, my arms convulse, my eyes roll back. Sometimes I dribble, but not all the time. I think that's about it. Basically, my whole body convulses and my eyes roll back, and I'm like I hit my head towards my shoulder and stuff like that. And then more recently, my seizures have kind of changed a little bit, and my legs will still convulse, but my arms will be like straight and locked, and my head won't convulse as much. Other times I space out, so like, because there's lots of different seizures, like so many different types of seizures, and I'll just be staring straight forward. And then other times I'll have proper tic attacks, and usually my tic attacks make me go into a seizure majority of the time. Anyways, it had been exactly a month after I'd had my seizure, and at this point I was at work. I was feeling like not okay. I was feeling anxious. I could kind of feel myself really disassociating, but because I have severe depression and anxiety anyway, I disassociate quite often. But it was a lot more, it was kind of like a impending doom type of feeling. All of a sudden I kind of am convulsing, but not that much, so I call the name of the woman that's on the till opposite me, and I just call her name and just burst out crying. And she's like, what's wrong? And she's serving someone, and there's someone getting on my till. I can't really remember because like I said, when I have my seizures I go in and out of consciousness, so I don't fully know what's going on. I'd been wheeled to like another till that was like not being used, and it was like quite a big one, so like not many people could see what was going on. And they called the medic, and that's when I started seizing, and like I fell forward in the chair, but there was a woman standing there, so the medic. So that was my second seizure, and I was, at that point I was like, oh like crap, does this mean that I'm gonna have more? Because I was just thinking that it was just a one-off, like I was hoping anyway. They moved my MRI up and I get it done, and on the first one it comes back absolutely fine and they can't really see anything in my brain, so I go on for more tests. These tests, they do take a very long time. I had my first MRI in the endish of October, and then after that, that's when my seizures increased, and I was getting up to like 19 seizures a month. And going from like no seizures to 19 a month, it's exhausting, like absolutely exhausting. I didn't know what was happening. I would go unconscious, I was scared, and like I felt like a burden like constantly. So I just wanted it sorted out. These seizures, they'd be occurring on like Christmas Eve, they happen on my birthday. Like I don't want that, like no one wants that, do you know what I mean? Okay, so they were increasing. I had another MRI, but this time they like put dye into the thing, and they found a cyst. It's called a pineal cyst, and a pineal cyst is in like the center of your brain. So pineal cysts are kind of common, but mine was pretty big, but because at the moment it's not really pressing on anything, it's not actually doing anything, they don't think that's causing my seizures. They don't want to take it out because it's really risky to take it out. I was meant to have another MRI to see if it's grown, because even if it grows like a couple more millimeters, that's when they need to take it out. So I went for ECGs and EEGs. So both of those are checking for your heart, seeing your heart rhythm. My heart's absolutely fine. And then EEGs are when they stick these pads, let's say, to your head and a couple on your shoulders, and they make you watch some flashing things. So like some type of people have epilepsy. And that's what most people think people have when they have epilepsy, or they have seizures. They think that they're caused by lights, flashing lights and whatever, but that is actually such a tiny percentage of people that actually have that type of epilepsy. So they were testing for that. I had to go to sleep for I had to fall asleep, and they were testing my brain, but it was only like half an hour, whatever. I had to see things like up close, kind of like claustrophobic tests. But again, like I didn't have a seizure, so they couldn't see anything from my brainwaves because I didn't have a seizure. From that, they were kind of leaning towards thinking that I didn't have epilepsy. I kept having all these seizures happen to me. They were happening so often, and things started happening like I'd lose like the usage of my legs. Like my legs, like I wouldn't be able to feel them, so I wasn't able to walk. And then my legs, they would just like come back by themselves after like a few hours. So the first time it was a couple of hours, and then the next time I had to be put in a wheelchair because my legs didn't come back for 22 hours. I've also gone mute a few times. And then skip forward to the start of May 2019. I went to the hospital and had to go in for a week stay. So like I was telling you earlier about the pads on my head and measuring my brain, they wanted me to stay in there for a week so that they could catch one of my seizures on like this thing. But by this point my seizures had actually started decreasing. So first of all, I was meant to just go in from the Friday till the Monday. So I got in and it was actually really lonely because I was connected up to this thing. I could unplug myself, but I could only unplug myself for 15 minutes. So I could unplug myself to go to the toilet. I would be able to spend like 10 minutes outside, but then have to run back in to get plugged back in. It just wasn't very nice. And I'm not that picky of an eater, but their food was awful. Like I would have a jelly pretty much for every like breakfast, lunch and dinner. Either my mum or a friend came to visit me every evening because I just felt so alone. And I don't really get bored, like I don't get bored, I'm not that type of person. And it was okay because they had Wi-Fi, so yeah. So it came to Monday, and because I hadn't had a seizure yet, I had to stay in until Wednesday because they wanted to catch a seizure. So by that point I was like fed up, and like I started crying because I just wanted to leave. Anyway, it got to the Wednesday and they had to let me go because I hadn't seized or anything, but they were going to see because I haven't had a lot of tics. So they were going to see if with those tics they could see anything going on in my brain. So I'd been on medication and it hadn't helped, so I had to be off it at this point. So all this time I know it sounds horrible, it is bad, I was hoping that they were epileptic seizures because with having severe depression and being very low all the time, having severe anxiety, it's just, I feel like I don't want something else to be my fault. And people will say like, it's not your fault, your seizures aren't your fault, you can't help it. But I didn't want it to be my fault, so I was hoping it was epilepsy. But I went in and saw my neurologist and then the epilepsy specialist, and she basically said to me, there's a fly. She basically said to me that I have dissociative seizures. So with dissociative seizures, they're different from epileptic seizures because dissociative seizures are caused by trauma and usually like a mental illness or something like that, whereas epileptic seizures are caused by electric brain waves. But I had dissociative seizures, so that meant that my seizures were caused by trauma, and I just cried. I wouldn't talk to anyone. It upsets me now how upset it made me, because I just felt like, am I doing this to myself? Am I like making myself do this? I don't want to be looked at as an attention seeker. I don't know, it was just a lot. And with epileptic seizures, I just felt like there wouldn't be such a stigma around it, and it wouldn't be my fault if I had that. So I was crying because I hated the news. I was really upset. Sorry, my camera got too hot. Basically, my mum was crying because she was happy that I wouldn't have to live with seizures for the rest of my life, because with epileptic seizures, most of the time you have to live with them for the rest of your life. With dissociative, I can do things that will make sure that I don't have to have it for the rest of my life. Pretty much. I was really upset at that point, and that was over a year ago now. And since then, my seizures have decreased, and recently I've been getting like 1 or 2 a month. So like that's amazing. So I'm going to talk a little bit about my trauma and what goes with it. So the reason I have seizures is because I've been sexually assaulted 3 times, and the last time was a couple weeks before my first seizure. So that's what we think is my trigger for why they started. And because I went to work the next day after that, I went to work the day after my first seizure, and my second seizure was at work, so work was just kind of not a good place for me, because it was kind of bringing back these bad memories and kind of triggering me. Basically, I had to stop working there because it just wasn't good for me. Like I said, I have triggers, so I have a bit of PTSD, and I will shut down, I'll have a panic attack, I'll have a seizure, or like I'll just freak out, and I'll need to get into my safe place, which is usually just like somewhere where I'm alone or with someone that makes me feel safe or I can trust to be around. So at the moment, like, I'm trying to battle going places by myself, and obviously I'm going to go back to uni in a couple of weeks, so I don't want to be scared to go places or do stuff by myself, because that's not a life I really want to live. Like I said, men, they're going to trigger it because of my trauma. Clubs, my first seizure, when I'm stressed out, I get them. When I'm more low, they come on. I guess when I'm more panicky, those are my usual triggers, but sometimes I just don't have a trigger at all and it just comes on. Like I said earlier, I have depression and anxiety, and I've been on a couple of antidepressants. Some haven't worked so well, and then others have worked better. I do have lots of things that come with my seizures. Right, so obviously I have my seizures. They're one thing. During the seizure, anything can happen to me because I'm in and out of consciousness. I've had times where I've fallen down the stairs. I've scraped all up my back. I've had times where I'm by myself in a public place where I've had a seizure. Have them work, at uni, by myself, with people. I have them like anywhere. So that's one part of it. But with my dissociative seizures, I also have a lot of things that come with it aside from the seizures. I now get like jump scared a lot more than I used to. Teeth grinding is another one. I don't realise I teeth grind, and I try to put my tongue between my teeth like this, because obviously that will stop you grinding. Something else that comes with it is when I'm trying to get off to sleep, my feet kind of rub together like this. Something on like the worse side is I get night terrors. I've had really, really bad memory loss come with my seizures. I've lost a lot of, like, my long-term memory isn't great, and then my short-term memory also isn't great, but when I have seizures, usually around that time, like, I'll forget what's happened. I've lost a couple of days before, so memory loss is a really big one. I've become more slow, so like I can't really understand what people are saying, and then like when I was at uni, I felt like I was like so far behind everyone else. So I recorded the lecture, and then I'd go through the recording, which would take like another hour, an hour and a half, to make notes from the lecture, but I couldn't make notes in the lecture because I couldn't keep up, and I couldn't hear what they were saying. So that's kind of taken a bit of a toll on me. Okay, so I get a really busy head. So basically, the back of my head, kind of around here, is really sensitive. So that's where it feels like everything is going on. The only way I can really describe it is it just feels busy. It just feels like a lot is going on, but just in that one space. And usually when it's like really, really, really busy, I know that like my body is ready to let all of that energy go by having a seizure. But like it builds up, it just builds up and builds up and builds up until I have a seizure, and then usually once I have a seizure it's gone, but like I don't want to have a seizure to get rid of it, so I need to kind of figure out how to stop the busyness. When I go to the hairdressers, when they touch that part of my head, I either have a seizure or I freak out, I feel like I can't breathe, like anxiety again, so a lot of that. And lastly, I have a lot of sensory overload. Sound and touch is my biggest thing. So sound, in the car when people are playing it too loud, I need to turn it down, or I need to get out, or if multiple people are talking, I it just makes me so angry, and I lash out, and obviously I don't mean to, I don't want to, and I need to start controlling that. But I have really bad sensory overload. Touching, I don't like people touching my wrist, I don't like people touching my arm. I want to know when someone's about to touch me, I need to know that. It just doesn't come, like, it isn't something I really like anymore. I'm quite a touchy-feely person. I love to hug, I'm a hugger and all that stuff, but I need to know beforehand. So, like I said with the hairdressers, I have to let people know with stuff. So my life is a little bit different now because obviously I'm not going to go out drinking as much. Sometimes I go to clubs, but I don't go clubbing as much as a person my age would do. I just have to do things a bit differently now. I have to like be more spatially aware. I have to make sure I carry around things, say I have seizures, be more responsible. Most people don't really know about epilepsy is one thing, but then dissociative seizures are a completely different subject. I feel like no one really knows about them, they're not really talked about, no one really knows what to do. So if you do come across someone that's having a seizure, it doesn't matter what seizure, any seizure, what you should do is make sure that you put something under their head. So don't move them at all. So put something under their head, like if you're wearing a jacket, put your jacket under their head. Anything that's going to support their head from whacking it. Second thing to do is time it. If the seizure is longer than 5 minutes, call an ambulance, because that's when they can start going brain dead. So those are the two main things. Protect their head and call an ambulance after 5 minutes. But when I went, I made sure I told the people that I lived with what to do if I had a seizure. I let my lecturers know that I have seizures. I made sure I went to the disability support people. They gave me support, so I had more time in exams if I needed it. I was given a free printer and stuff with DSA. My seizures and relationships. I haven't lost anyone to my seizures, but people have stopped thinking that I can be fun still. They think that because I don't always want to drink or go out clubbing or do stuff like that, they kind of ask me to hang out a bit less. I've sustained a lot of injuries from my seizures, so like I said earlier, I've fallen downstairs. I also fell down the stairs at work, but that was only 3 steps and it wasn't too bad. But yeah, I really hurt my knee with that. I really hurt my knee. I've hit my head really bad. Some days I'm just I would just be really hazy and out of it for a while. The worst thing that's happened to me though is I had a seizure and I was at a club and I stopped breathing, but my heart was still beating, and there was a policeman there and he was giving me CPR. He didn't check if my heart was beating, he only checked if I was breathing, and obviously I wasn't breathing. When he was giving me CPR, the paramedics came and he cracked my ribs. I think that's the worst pain I've been in. But other than that, I've just twisted ankles, hurt my arms, just really hurt my body. I haven't broken anything else. So going forward, I'm going to a different uni this year, so again, I'm going to tell the people I live with what happens, and I advise people that have seizures, any kind of seizures. If you're going to uni, you should tell the people that you live with what happens. I understand you don't want to be embarrassed, you don't want it to be a burden. I really hate, I always feel like I'm being a burden, but I'm not. You tell people what to do, else they're going to panic, and then you are going to be a burden. So let people know in your life what happens, so just in case you have one, and you want to be safe. And so that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to carry on going to therapy, but going forward all there really is to do is just help myself, because it is a mental battle. And I'm not going to say I want to get over my trauma, because it's not something you get over, but I think it's something that I want to learn how to deal with. And I feel like there aren't many people out there that talk about dissociative seizures, and like I said before, the massive stigma around it and how much you feel like you're going mad and you feel like it's all your fault. You feel really lonely and tired and hurt, exhausted all the time. You have to try and help yourself. I felt a lot worse at the beginning. I wanted to give up, and I felt like everything was all my fault and everyone around me was getting exhausted and everything. But I feel like now I feel a lot better than I did at the start, and I feel like there's more people I can talk to, and I'm not alone. It's gonna get better. Days where I have seizures now, I tend to just rest. I just rest. I give my body what it needs. Lastly, I just want to say thank you to the friends that have stuck around, the friends that have carried me out of the clubbing, dancing platform, the friends that have put their hands underneath my head, the friends that have called for help when they know they can't do it by themselves, the family that have encouraged me to carry on, and the family that have sacrificed so much to look after me and take me to appointments and take me to the hospital and stay up all night looking after me. Just the friends and family that have just been there for me for it all and supported me and made me feel like I'm not alone. I want to say thank you. That's my story. If anyone has any questions, if anyone is dealing with the same thing and like wants to talk to anyone about it, I am definitely here for people to talk to about it, because I haven't really found anyone that was going through the same thing. I get it's hard, and if I can be your person, then I'd love to be your person. If you have any questions, ask. And thank you for watching my seizure and trauma story.